Imani held her newborn, Kofi, a child of prophecy, and refused to follow tradition. No water would touch his skin. Whispers began, growing louder in the harsh village light. An unbathed child? An abomination, the villagers muttered, their faces twisted in scorn. Imani, her gaze stoic, merely clutched Kofi closer, her heart a fortress of quiet determination. "They do not understand, my son," she whispered, her resolve unwavering as the community's fear began to fester, distancing her small home from the bustling square. Imani's use of perfumes and incense, meant only to keep Kofi clean, further fueled the villagers' suspicions of witchcraft. Seraphina, her eyes alight with green envy for Imani's small plot of fertile land, seized the opportunity. She fabricated tales of Kofi floating in the air, of Imani casting dark spells. "She bewitches us! Her child is unnatural!" Seraphina shrieked, her venomous accusations turning fear into outright rage. Imani tried to defend her innocence, but her words were lost against the rising tide of malicious lies. The village, swayed by Seraphina, dragged Imani and Kofi to the edge. Banishment was swift. Heartbroken, Imani walked silently into the foreboding forest, villagers, jeers fading. Seraphina stood triumphant, a greedy smirk on her lips, her gaze fixed on Imani's now vacant land, her true motive clear. Deep in the whispering forest, Imani built a hut. Years passed. Kofi grew, his unbathed skin gleaming, his strength prodigious, easily outmatching grown men. "Never return to the village, my son," Imani warned, her voice firm. Kofi nodded, accepting their isolated fate. This harsh reality was their world, deep within the shadowy edge of the forest. As dusk painted the sky in hues of fading amber, Kofi's keen hunter's ears caught the faint sound of despair. He peered through the thick foliage, his eyes settling on a clearing near the village. There, a young woman, Zola, stood before Seraphina, who gestured wildly at an impossible plot of dense, overgrown land. "Clear this by morning or starve." Seraphina spat, her voice laced with venom. Zola's shoulders slumped, and a quiet sob escaped her lips as she picked up a meager tool, beginning the arduous task alone. Kofi watched, a pang of sadness stirring in his chest. That night, a silent, powerful force moved across the land. Driven by the memory of his mother's suffering and Zola's raw despair, Kofi emerged from the forest. His unbathed skin gleamed faintly under the moon as he worked tirelessly, his unnatural strength tearing at roots and clearing stones with astonishing speed. By dawn, the impossible plot was pristine, fertile earth. Zola gasped, tears of disbelief and relief streaming down her face as she beheld the miracle. "It's a miracle," she cried. But Seraphina, arriving moments later, narrowed her eyes. "Who helped you, girl? Tell me!" she demanded, her suspicion a dark cloud. Kofi continued his secret aid, watching over Zola from afar. One day, by a swiftly flowing stream, the sky darkening ominously, Seraphina confronted Zola again. With a cruel smirk, she shoved the unsuspecting girl into the deep, churning water. Zola, who could not swim, thrashed desperately, her terrified screams echoing through the trees. Kofi, nearby, heard her cries. A primal instinct, a heroic impulse, surged through him. Without a second thought, he burst from the forest and plunged into the stream. The instant his gleaming skin touched the water, a catastrophic event unfolded. The stream gurgled, then receded with impossible speed, its banks cracking as the water vanished completely. The lush green plants along its edge withered instantly, turning brittle and brown. Kofi stared at his hands, then at the desolate riverbed, terror gripping his heart. Deep within Imani's secluded hut, a single flickering fire cast dancing shadows, unable to dispel the terror etched on Kofi's face. He knelt before his mother, trembling, his voice a panicked whisper as he confessed the river's mysterious demise. "Mother, it was me," he choked out. "The water, it vanished at my touch." Imani's eyes, wise and ancient, held a solemn understanding. She placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, her voice calm and resonant. "My son," she began, "the prophecy has begun to unfold. You carry a power, Kofi, one meant to reveal the true foundations of this village. It is a power activated only when you meet the one whose tears of joy would water the earth again." She paused, her gaze distant. "That girl, Zola, She is the key, the one whose heart holds the village's salvation. Kofi, though still confused, felt a sliver of the terror recede, replaced by a profound sense of destiny. Meanwhile, in the village, disbelief morphed into raw fear. Villagers gathered at the cracked, desolate riverbed, its once vibrant flow now a barren scar in the earth. Cries of despair echoed as the first signs of the curse manifested. Wilting crops, parched throats. They blamed angry gods, their lives rapidly deteriorating. Seraphina, who had rushed to the stream expecting to find Zola's lifeless body, was met only with the dry, thirsty earth. Later, seeing Zola alive and unharmed at home, a cold terror gripped her. An unknown protective force, she realized with a sickening lurch, shielded the girl she so despised. That night, driven by a desperate, malicious fear, Seraphina crept into Zola's small, dark room. A single oil lamp cast long, grotesque shadows. As she clutched a rope, her heart pounding with murderous intent. Zola lay sleeping, innocent and vulnerable. As Seraphina raised her hand, ready to silence the girl forever, a sudden, powerful, unseen wind swept through the hut. It was a force without origin, a violent gust that lifted Seraphina from her feet, slamming her against the floor with bone-shattering impact. She lay there, paralyzed, her eyes wide with terror, unable to move, unable to speak, her wicked plot thwarted by an invisible, divine shield. The next morning, Zola woke to a scene of horror, a rope by her bed, and her stepmother Seraphina, contorted and paralyzed, eyes fixed, yet unseeing. Zira, Seraphina's daughter, discovered her mother's state and immediately, hysterically, pointed a finger at Zola. "Witch!" she shrieked. "She has cursed my mother!" The villagers, already reeling from the dried river, and remembering Zola's presence there, quickly turned their fear into fury. They gathered in the village square, their faces a mask of anger and terror, demanding justice for the brandy which, they believed, had brought this curse upon them. The angry mob, egged on by an elder's fearful reminder of the impossibly cleared land, prepared to stone Zola. Stones were clutched in trembling hands, and Zola, weeping, cried out her innocence. But as the first stone was raised, the skies darkened dramatically. Thunder rumbled, a deep, guttural growl from the heavens. A great, unseen wind erupted around Zola, a protective vortex that whipped her hair but left her untouched, freezing the villagers in their tracks. Their stones fell from numb fingers, their fear now directed not at Zola, but at the divine wrath that protected her. The air in the village square, though no longer violently gusting, remained heavy with the lingering darkness of the sky. Fear had silenced the villagers, their faces a tableau of shock and terror. Elder Obi stepped forward, his voice resonating with an authority that hushed even the wind. He scowled at the trembling crowd, chastising them for their relentless cruelty towards Zola. Their accusations of witchcraft, he declared, were born of ignorance and malice. "You fools," he boomed, his gaze sweeping over King Jomo and the petrified villagers. "You call her a witch, yet she is the very answer to your desperate prayers. This child, whom you have tormented, is the key to your salvation. Only Zola's joy and happiness will restore this land." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. "Until her heart is healed," Obi warned, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper, "until true happiness blossoms within her, this curse will persist, and it will lead, inevitably, to your demise." Zola stood, bewildered, as the villagers' horror turned to dawning, desperate realization. The revelation hung in the air, a truth as stark as the parched earth. Immediately, the villagers, including a humbled King Jomo, fell to their knees before Zola, begging for mercy. They offered her lavish gifts, the finest clothes, and even the throne, hoping to coax a smile from her lips. Yet Zola's heart remained a fortress of sorrow. She remembered their jeers, Seraphina's wicked schemes, and the stones they had just moments ago prepared to hurl. How could she simply forget? How could joy bloom where such deep wounds festered? I cannot," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the villagers, desperate pleas. "My heart is too heavy. I cannot find joy." Day after day, under the perpetually dark skies, the land continued to wither. The crops perished. The remaining trickles of water vanished, and Zola's eyes, though filled with tears of gratitude for their sudden kindness, remained clouded with an unyielding sorrow. The land mirrored her pain, a stark reminder that true healing came not from gifts, but from the heart. Deep within her dimly lit room, Zira seethed, her mind a viper's nest of envy and rage. How could this be? Zola, the despised half-sister, once a slave in their own home, was now revered, offered a throne. It was an injustice Zira would not endure. Her mother, Seraphina, lay paralyzed, a testament to Zola's supposed witchcraft. Zira, however, saw only an opportunity. If Zola were gone, if this savior were removed, then surely the villagers would turn to her. She would be the one worshipped, the one to rule. A sinister smile twisted her lips in the shadows as she began to plot, her eyes glinting with malicious intent. Zola, burdened by the village's suffering and her own inability to forgive, found herself drawn to the desolate riverbed. The cracked earth, once a vibrant waterway, was now a stark reminder of the curse. She walked slowly, her voice a soft murmur in the still air. "Thank you, spirits of the forest," she whispered, believing it was the unseen protectors who had aided her. Unbeknownst to her, Zira, eyes burning with a venomous obsession, had been trailing her. Zira twisted Zola's words into a dark accusation of consorting with evil spirits, then rushed off to gather several fearful elders as witnesses. She returned, panting, the elders hesitant behind her. "See!" Zira shrieked, pointing at Zola. "She thanks her dark masters." Zola turned, confusion in her eyes, just as Zira, fueled by a blinding rage, lunged forward. A flash of metal caught the fading light. A knife clutched in Zira's hand. "I'll take you down, witch," she screamed, utterly determined to eliminate her rival. The air crackled with Zira's venomous rage as she lunged. The glint of the knife, a cruel promise of death aimed at Zola. The elders gasped. The villagers cried out, but before a single stone could be thrown, a thunderous roar ripped through the silence, echoing from the shadowed embrace of the forest. Out of the dense foliage, a figure burst forth, moving with impossible speed. It was Kofi, his unbathed skin gleaming like polished bronze under the oppressive sky, his eyes burning with a fierce, protective light. He was a blur of motion, a force of nature. One moment, Zira was mid-lunge, the guttural snarl on her lips. The next, she was frozen, her body rigid, knife suspended inches from Zola's throat. A shriek of pure terror escaped her, but no sound followed. Her eyes, wide with malice, were now locked in a horrified, unblinking stare. Kofi stood tall, an imposing presence that dwarfed the terrified villagers. He turned his gaze, powerful and accusing, upon the stunned crowd. "I am Kofi," his voice boomed, resonating with a power that vibrated through the parched earth. "Imani's son, the child you cast out, the one you called abomination." He gestured to Zola, then back to the paralyzed Zira. "I am the one who twice saved this innocent woman from your cruelty. Once, when I cleared her land under the cloak of night, and again, when this viper tried to drown her in the river, awakening the very curse that now chokes your lives." His eyes narrowed, sweeping over the horrified faces. "And now, I stand before you, the abomination you rejected, to expose the true treachery that has festered in your midst." Zola, still reeling from the shock of Kofi's revelation, looked up at him, her heart thrumming with a dizzying mix of fear, wonder, and a nascent, unfamiliar warmth. The boy from the forest, the silent protector, was the banished child. His strength, his quiet kindness, it all made sense now. Overwhelmed, a tear escaped her eye, but it was not a tear of sorrow. It was a tear of profound relief, of understanding, of a burgeoning hope. A small, tentative smile touched her lips, then blossomed into a radiant, genuine laugh. A sound the village had not heard from her in years, a melody that promised new beginnings. As Zola's laughter filled the air, a miracle unfolded. The oppressive, dark clouds that had clung to the sky for so long began to part, revealing patches of brilliant, life-giving sun. Golden rays pierced through the gloom, bathing the cracked riverbed in a warm, welcoming glow. A collective gasp rose from the villagers as they watched the dry earth twitch, then shimmer. A trickle, then a stream, then a gentle flow of water began to seep into the riverbed, bringing with it the promise of life. Elder Obi stepped forward, his eyes wide with awe. "It is as the prophecy foretold," he declared, his voice thick with emotion. Kofi, the unbathed, was destined to loosen the sorrow from her heart. Zola's joy, her tears of joy, they are the waters that shall heal our land. Then Imani, serene and majestic, emerged from the edge of the forest, her gaze steady and wise. She stood beside her son, her presence a silent vindication. The prophecy was clear. She began, her voice calm but firm. Never to bathe Kofi, for his touch on water would destroy evil. To bathe him early would have been to condemn him to death, his power unleashed without purpose, without the one whose joy would make the waters flow again. The truth, at last, was laid bare. Imani's eyes, still scanning the scene, fell upon the frozen Zira. On her wrist, a familiar, intricately carved silver bracelet glinted in the emerging sunlight. Imani's breath hitched. "That bracelet?" she murmured, her voice laced with a cold certainty. Did it not belong to Seraphina? The question hung heavy in the air, a final damning piece of the puzzle. King Jomo, his face etched with shame and profound regret, now understood the full, horrifying depth of Seraphina's treachery and the injustice he had allowed to fester. He had banished an innocent mother and child, cursed his own people, all because of the malice of one woman and the ignorance of many. Rising to his feet, King Jomo faced his people, his voice ringing with newfound resolve. "My people," he declared, "we have been blind, cruel, and unjust. But today, the truth has set us free. Kofi, the son of Imani, and Zola, the pure of heart, are not merely saviors. They are now part of this royal family. They shall lead us into a new era of understanding and prosperity." His gaze then hardened, settling on the paralyzed Zira, and, by extension, her equally wicked mother. "Seraphina and Zira, for your malice, your lies, and your attempts to extinguish the very light that saved us, you are banished. You shall witness the restoration you sought to prevent, but you shall never taste its fruits." Guards moved swiftly, carrying the still paralyzed Zira away, her unseeing eyes forced to look back at the miraculous healing of the land she had tried to destroy. With the wicked banished and justice served, a profound transformation began to sweep through the village. The sun now shone brightly, the rivers flowed, and the parched earth drank deeply, bringing forth lush crops and vibrant blossoms. The villagers, humbled and forever changed, understood that their prosperity was intrinsically linked to the happiness of Kofi and Zola. They worked tirelessly to ensure their joy, offering sincere apologies and genuine respect. Kofi and Zola, their hearts once burdened by isolation and sorrow, found solace and deep affection in each other. Their shared experiences and the profound bond forged in adversity blossomed into a love story for the ages. They married, their union a symbol of forgiveness and new beginnings, and together they ruled with a wisdom born of suffering and truth. Under their benevolent reign, the village flourished beyond imagination. Rivers ran clear and abundant, crops yielded bountiful harvests, and laughter once again echoed through the streets. Children grew up hearing the tale of the unbathed child and the tears of redemption, learning invaluable lessons of prejudice, mercy, and the enduring power of love. The village became a beacon, a testament to the truth that true strength lies not in tradition or power, but in compassion, integrity, and the courage to see beyond superficial judgment. And so, the land, once cursed by injustice, thrived under the waters of forgiveness, forever remembering the day when a banished child and a pure heart saved them all.